Hey guys, VaulSC here, how you going? We're going to take a look at a game of infiNity today, playing against a newer player. My opponent for this game is somebody who's been playing a lot of Aristaya lately, just getting into infiNity for the first time. He's played a couple of games at the 200 point level, and this will be his first game at 300 points. So it's more of a learning game as opposed to like a cutthroat high-level competition kind of game. But I want to cover this bat rep anyway, even though normally I wouldn't sort of do like a learner-explainer game so much. First reason why I want to go over it is that I know that a lot of you guys who view these videos are also quite new to infiNity, still struggling with some of the basics, still unsure of, some of the basic decisions like where to deploy, where not to move, some of the really early list design decisions. And I think this bat rep will give me an opportunity to commentate at that kind of level a bit more about, somebody sort of starting, going through those first sort of learning curves, the steeper curves of understanding sort of what to do and when to do it. The other reason why I think this bat rep will be worth going through is that I will be playing the A-Team, a foreign company, with Hannibal. It'll be my first game with them, and sort of noobing it up with them, really. And despite playing against somebody who's less experienced, especially in the first game round, this game turns out to be kind of close because I'm not playing optimally. I'm taking quite a weak list, and my luck is actually pretty bad at the outset, so we'll have a bit of fun with it. But it'll give me the opportunity to explain with first-hand information and actual evidence why the A-Team actually has quite a lot of potential, but at the same time there's a lot that can go wrong with it, and there's a few reasons why you're not going to see this particular list a lot, at high-level ITS competition. So if that's your kind of thing, keep watching. If not, plenty of other bat reps on the channel. So let's have a look at what we're dealing with. We'll go to his list first. So Ramah TF, my opponent trying them out. It'll be his first go with linked teams, and really just playing models that he has. As for the profiles he wants to use that he's proxying, we've got a Mukhtar duo here, which he's going to be using like a Valkyrie model and Odalisk model to represent them. But the Mukhtar duo, nothing terribly wrong with that. Mukhtars are extremely good profiles. It's just that the Red Fury profile is just so far and away beyond the rest of them. It's hard to really consider the other ones on that basis, but hey, in this case he's bringing a Forward Observer Specialist along with him. We are going to be playing Frontline for this one though, so not really about the button pressing and objective grabbing, more about killing and controlling. Tariq Mansouri, level 2 Lieutenant, probably the best profile in the faction in my view. I still regard Total Immunity. Total Immunity is very, very powerful, but Fatality level 2 as being overpowered. It's broken. It's despite you having some good games and some bad games and things kind of averaging out. Nobody should really be getting crits that often, and given that you can link him, it's a bit too much. My opponent opts not to move him around within the link of this game. I think if I was playing Ramah and I was going for the real heavy beat stick Tariq, yeah, sometimes I might run him by himself, but you get the most out of him when he is in the link team. Speaking of which, you can add him in with the Nafatums and Ghulams, and these profiles, nothing really wrong with them. Lila can go in any particular group, so that's really handy as a wild card. Kawarij, again, do prefer the Fatality level 2, but if you've already got Tariq in there to do that, Heavy Rocket Launcher is not bad in the Aero game. I find that's alright, but yeah, the other profile I really like with the Courage is the Chain of Command. That way you can play Tariq a little bit more aggressively. If you lose him, the lieutenant's down the drain and you've got to spend a whole turn recovering. Nahab, with him not starting the game on the table, it's kind of hard because you want to be able to use all of the orders on the link team if you're playing that strategy, but you don't have to play that strategy. You can break it up a bit, have Tariq go off on his own, have the Nahab land later, and this honestly is not a terrible profile. I personally would rather go for something like the Tuareg Doctor or the Tuareg Hacker. And then, of course, the Alpha Seed, wonderful model, wonderful sculpt, just not really one of the better profiles because you're paying too much for what you're getting from him. In the Aero sort of turn, he's a bit weak because he's got no modifiers, just a plain Blistical 13. In the offensive turn, he's actually quite slow, hard to get around and make the most use out of him. Plus, you're going to be using Tariq for that anyway, so either downgrade this guy to a heavy rocket launcher, in which case he's a really good roadblock, or remove him entirely, and that'll free up a lot of points for some of the dirtier and nastier stuff that Ramah can do. Going to my A-team list, I've talked about this a bit before in my foreign company video. If you haven't checked out the foreign company review, please do so. That'll talk about it a bit more. But the thinking is that Hannibal's in there. He's really just there for the strategic deployment, Strategos level 1. You're generally going to want to take first turn more often than not to make use of, your Alpha Strike, Strategos, the strategic deployment. Otherwise, he's a pretty uninteresting profile as far as the rest of his kit is concerned. Valkyrie, I love having total immunity there to take on the flash pulses and stuff like that. Senior Massacre, I think, is an amazing addition to this Link team because he affords the Eclipse Grenades. What you're wanting to be doing is closing the distance, getting to their side of the table, absolutely crushing and gutting their order pool. But to get there in the first place, you might need to block line of sight to the position where their missile launcher is hiding or where their Varuna sniper is going to clip you from. So having the EM grenades there can be wonderful. And also, not to mention, getting either him or Valkyrie into close combat, or if you're playing a mission like looting and sabotaging, that piece of gear is gold. Lakshmi is the only member here which only has one, her and Senior Massacre both have only one wound, so a bit flimsy and fragile, but again, if they've got a threatening hacker or just a vulnerable hacker, you can pick it apart with the Pitcher plus a Maestro. And if you end up on their side of the table with 1 or 2 orders to spare, setting up a Cybermine or something like that can be pretty good. Also going into impersonation state if you need to, not bad. Putting up Fairy Dust even for the Orc. She's got a really good toolkit, so I like having her along there. And very, very reliable specialist coming along with the Link team. You don't get that with every, pain train. A couple of other things. Zero Hacker and Zero Multi-Sniper, more for defense than anything else. I want to be able to stand a chance against some of the things which can just come over to your side of the table and crack this group. So that's why I choose these guys. Although, just your Willpower 13, Ballistic Skill 11 versions with no armor or BTS that don't really do a very good job. They are just cheap. So I'm thinking maybe in future lists, perhaps I will try the E-Maulers and deployable repeaters and so forth. Crocman, again, just something to have out there to stall them if they're going to make a push towards you and trying to, get to the meat of your Link team and kill the easy low-hanging fruit of that. Bakunin, the Uberfell Commando team, they are really, really good. You can convert the irregular to a regular if you need to power the Link team. Having a free order to move out and throw that Eclipse Grenade to save Senior Massacre from having to do it, really, really strong. And they'll be planting that quite easily on a 16. Note that Senior Massacre is actually landing it on 19s on 2 dice because +3 for the Link bonus, +3 for short range. Very reliable Eclipse Grenade in this list. And of course, Daktari, mainly there to revive the Orc Trooper. Orc Trooper is the linchpin, really, of this team, despite the big names there. You've got this vanilla Orc Trooper, really no frills on him, but he's so important for that massive BS14 armor 4 HMG going up to 17s on 5 dice. He's there to ensure you're not spending lots and lots of orders trying to kill the same thing. You're killing the target, moving on, and getting your orders done efficiently, which can allow this Link team to have a better shooting game than something like your Mobile Brigada Link team. So it's a vulnerable list. You're generally wanting to be going first. However, given this is more of a learning game, after winning the dice roll for first turn, I decided to take tableside anyway because I wanted to give my opponent the chance to try out what he wanted to try out in this game, given that it's his first go at 300 points. So I decided to pick tableside, let him choose what he wanted to do. He decided to take first turn. And here we go. This is an overview of the map, by the way. Again, it's Frontline, so if we draw 3 imaginary zones, they're going to look like this. So deployment zones are over here. Then there's the mid zone, where you get a bunch of points for having more points with the troops in the middle. And then, depending on which table side you are on, you get a point for controlling this zone if you're this player over here, and a bunch more points for controlling this one on this side. Great. I think you guys have played Frontline before. So here he is setting up Alpha Seed at the front. Link team consists of Lila, the Doctor, one of the Nafatuns, Gulam Sniper, and the Courage further out here with the heavy rocket launcher. A bit more of a closer view of them. And then a couple of Mukhtars over to his left-hand flank. They're going to be prone nearby to this Courage and his HVT. I lent the model out for that. There's a closer look at, so Valkyrie is going to be representing the Red Fury Mukhtar and the Odalisk representing the Rifle Mukhtar. Then it's my turn to deploy. So, by the way, before the game even started, guys, we actually talked to each other about what was in our lists. I told him what my closed information was. He told me what was his, just so we could, you know, theorize and learn and explain what some of the units did, because he's sort of getting to grips with the mechanics of the game. That's something I do quite commonly when, you know, new players are learning. HVT out here, this is my assault hacker, this is my sniper, zeros, and then there's going to be a hidden deployment or a crocman there in the corner. But as you can see, Senior Massacre, Orc Trooper, Hannibal, who is the link leader, Laxmi, and Valkyrie. Note that Senior Massacre and Valkyrie both have the shotgun profile, because the long range stuff's going to be handled by this guy here, or even if it's medium range, possibly even Hannibal himself with his awesome multi-marksman rifle. Bit of a vanity close-up of them, looking really good. Haven't finished painting them yet, but I'm having a good time painting them. There is a doctor in the middle representing a Daktari. I couldn't really find the right spot. I didn't want to put her right next to the Orc Trooper, because then he might have uprooted his link team. And this is like a tip for my opponent, really. I didn't want to tell him at the time, but he could have uprooted his Kalrij, moved over and fired at my Orc Trooper, and caused the splash damage onto the Daktari if I had deployed the Daktari next to the Orc Trooper. But that's why I didn't do that. So just explaining that bit of theory. Unfortunately, it means that the Daktari is quite a long way away, so if the Orc Trooper goes unconscious, it could be a bit of a trek for me to get that Doctor over to that point. Then we've got the Uberfell Commando on the left-hand flank, just prone behind objects. As I mentioned, the Crocman's going to go in that little spot. So another look at where they are. Opponent's going to be deploying Tariq on the right-hand flank as his reserve trooper. Changes his mind about where he's going to position him, so he just puts him back over here. He's worried that I might have an Orc Trooper with a sniper rifle, for example, because he doesn't know that one of my camo markers is using the SWCs. So here is my hidden deployment photo verification, and Tariq's there ready to move out. So he starts by spinning the lieutenant orders on Tariq, moving him down the right-hand flank. I've got nothing to really contest him with. Also popping out the Alpha Seed to fire a smoke grenade over towards the position of the Mukhtars, who are then able to move out. Unfortunately, he lands it in such a way where the first Mukhtar moving out around the corner is going to be fine, but the other Mukhtar moving over here will actually be in line of sight of my Orc Trooper if he does that. Now let's talk about this. It might seem like a terrible, terrible situation for the Mukhtar, because the Orc is going to be hitting on 17s on 2 dice, and the Mukhtar is probably going to be at long range. But thinking about it, it's going to be hard for the Mukhtar, going to be hard for the Orc Trooper to get 2 wounds onto him, and he's got NWI. And if he moves 6 inches into the smoke, he might actually come into range, which will mean it'll be 4 dice on 13s versus 2 dice on 17s, so that might further help your chances of surviving. Once you're in the smoke, you can then close the distance and get somewhere a bit more ideal for the Mukhtars, and potentially engage from the better range band between 16 to 32, 8 to 16 is what I meant, where the Red Fury is going to be much better at cracking the Orc Trooper. So although he wasn't really sure what to do and ultimately decided to push out here, and at the time I felt like, well, this is a really unfortunate move. It gives me a massive advantage. The Mukhtar's not that badly off once it gets into smoke, so long as it's not unlucky enough to lose both wounds there. So what happens is the Mukhtar does indeed move out into the smoke. Orc Trooper does respond with a couple of crack shots from the HMG. And the Mukhtar actually does really, really well here, and wins the confrontation, and does, cause a wound to the Orc Trooper, who has to guts it back into cover. So does very well. Orc Trooper's already off and hiding. Note that he's not going prone. He's just coming far enough to the side where his silhouette value will allow him a view through across to the side of the table, where I expect Tariq to come around through the flank. Okay, so if Tariq does come around the corner there, yes, Tariq can shoot at me, but he's -3 range, -3 for cover. I'll be shooting with 2 dice, +3 for range, -3 for cover, or minus nothing for cover if he leaves cover. So Tariq would be fishing for crits there. Alright, so Mukhtar's moving further into position now that they've driven the Orc Trooper back into cover. Tariq now moving over here and realizing that given my positioning, he can't really follow up all the way around the flank because there is danger of my hidden deployment model, which he hasn't revealed yet, and there is the Orc Trooper, which is covering this long angle here. So he decides not to do that, despite having spent the orders to move Tariq up. So Tariq ends up behind this car. We then have one of the Muqtars just poking around the corner. You can't really see him because of the blurriness of the photo, but just popping around, getting line of sight to one of my, what do you call these guys? What do you call them again? I can't remember. They're called Pupniks. So getting line of sight to one of these Pupniks and destroying it with the Red Fury before poking back behind the wall. And then going into suppression fire with his Alpha Seed. A bit of a commentary here. This is something I see new players do sometimes, and the quicker you can get out of this habit, the better. Putting guys into suppression fire if they have a view of a long area of the table from long ranges isn't such a good idea, because your opponent can then choose to shoot at you from beyond the distance of 24 inches, meaning that you have to give up suppression fire straight away. It will have, wasted your order and your time getting into that state in the first place. And, you shooting back, you're still going to be at a disadvantage with one dice. So the better move is just to reposition somewhere that you're going to be using your one dice arrow more effectively in the earlier stages of the game. So, decides to spend his last orders retreating with the Muqtars now that he's driven back the Orc Trooper, done some damage to it, killed a Pupnik, found no more opportunities to attack, or at least feels that he hasn't been able to find them, and just comes back to the behind the wall where he actually started the turn. Tariq also going into suppression fire. So, not the most productive first turn. I think my opponent was perhaps hoping that the Muqtars could get to a position where they could render the Orc Trooper unconscious, and Tariq could have headed a bit further around the flank, getting some more kills. I did point out that he could have chosen to retreat Tariq as well, despite not getting anything done with him. It's typically quite unsafe to leave him that far towards your enemy line. Suppression fire with Fatality level 2 is very, very strong, but I can find ways to crack him given the strength of my Link team as well. So again, if you're a newer player, one thing you want to try and get to grips with as early as possible is the positioning of your guys. Where are your models going to be at the end of your turn? Always be thinking about that as you're spending the orders, and try to get in the habit of forming a bit of a plan. One way you can play your turn from the outset is to just charge screaming towards the enemy line, and if you die, well, they were going to kill you anyway because you'll run out of orders and you'll be out of position. But if you can get that damage done, then it will have been worth it. Or you can spend about 2/3 of your orders running over there and shooting them, getting the kills you can, then spend the remaining 1/3 of your orders just pulling back somewhere really safe, and maybe going to suppression fire behind some partial cover closer to your line, and it will cost them more resources to come after you at that point. So that can be one way to go. But as played, we are still going to have to deal with Tariq, and he still has sent the Muqtars back, and he still has a Alpha Seed there, which is covering a few different angles. So thanks to his move here, he is going to catch the Pupnik and the Chimera as they move out impetuously. I was hoping that the Chimera could move out of here and avoid Tariq's line of sight, but as he crosses the box, he does actually just pop into this little line of sight. So the Eclipse throw to get the Eclipse Grenade down here is going to be contested. I was hoping I could move out a line of sight, throw the Eclipse Grenade, then move the Pupniks into the smoke and just rip them up in close combat, because with their abilities, Tariq, even though he's good at close combat, isn't going to be strong enough to get the better of them. That doesn't happen though, and Tariq heroically guns them all down. Note that this Pupnik is gunned down by the Ghulam Sniper, who can see along this flank, but Tariq himself does nail the Chimera, so we can move on after this point. Tariq is looking good. No Eclipse Grenade down. But it's time to play the A-team, so spending some orders on them. They are now moving out, just carefully avoiding lines of sight and taking as many photos of them as they can, because they look really cool. Senior Massacre, everybody's stopping right before the line of the enemy Link team here in the Alpha Seed. So we're stopping right before that little line of fire and then throwing a smoke grenade here and here. It's going to jam up some really big, this whole wall here is going to be smoked off. And then we can move the whole team through to this part of the battlefield where we can engage the Alpha Seed from a more favorable angle. So that was fun, really enjoying this team, and it's just fun moving them around the battlefield. Orc Trooper already wounded, by the way. So now what we're doing is we are trying to engineer a situation where the Orc Trooper can spend the first short skill, move across the line of the cover, and just barely get line of sight to his Alpha Seed in the distance, and hopefully crack him. It's Bliss skill 17 on 5 dice versus BS 13 on 1 dice, so how hard could that be, right? Everybody else pushing through. It did occur to me that I could smoke this door off as well, smoke over here and go into close combat with Tariq, but I would have rather get some shooting done since I have a whole bunch of orders this turn. He could fire a grenade at me long range and actually clip some members of this team, which would be kind of funny because he has the potential to get some damage done there, but I have a doctor nearby, and the grenade would be a very ineffective way of contesting the Orc Trooper's shots, so I'm glad that he didn't attempt to do that. The HMG is a much better way of doing it because as the Alpha Seed, what you want him to be doing is maybe rolling a number like a 4, 5, or 6, or whatever it might be, blocking 1 or 2 hits in the Orc Trooper. Orc Trooper might fail one of the throws, rolling an 18, 19, or 20, and then with the 2 or 3 hits that he does get through, you might be able to pass some armor saves because you've got a lot of armor as the Alpha Seed. So that's the strategy there for Hakislam. Stay there, just try and slow them down, try and waste all of the orders so you can get to your turn. If Tariq then survives, Tariq can poke around the corner and start wrecking the A-team. He's pretty good at doing that. Even with Eclipse Smoke, you can start targeting Senior Massacre and stuff like that. So it would be a pretty bad look. But what happens here is that the Orc Trooper does go after the Alpha Seed, and I'm horrified to say that he wins the first face-to-face roll, or at least tanks the armor saves. Can't quite remember what happened, so I have to do it again. And then he rolls a crit on a 13, and I fail to get any crits. And Orc Trooper is sort of poking in and out of line of sight and eventually just gets rocked unconscious, which I couldn't believe. I was like, what? So I'm going to have to spend the remainder of my turn, well, almost the remainder of turn, moving the Dactari around, just barely avoiding the line from the Alpha Seed, by the way. Gets around here, does eventually revive the Orc Trooper. The Orc Trooper then has to spend like the third to last order pulling around here to fire at the Alpha Seed. In an act of desperation, I'm also moving Senior Massacre and Hannibal across the line of fire here, tempting him to fire a grenade at me or shoot at one of them with the HMG round to soften them up, knowing that if he does that, I'm prepared to fight the rest of the game without my Link team member or with a wound on Hannibal. I just need to be able to shoot him to death with the Orc Trooper. Luckily, though, this particular face-to-face roll goes a lot better, and after my vicious defeat earlier in the turn, I managed to render the Alpha Seed unconscious with a really good string of rolls from the Orc Trooper, causing 2 wounds to him. I've got a couple of orders left, so there's the Alpha Seed unconscious. So spinning the second last order, moving Shotgun Senior Massacre over here, blasting Tariq point blank. This is risky because we're up against Fatality level 2 suppression fire. So I'm +3 for the Link team, +6 for range, -3 for cover, -3 for suppression. Still pretty good odds on 3 dice. Tariq firing at me on 10s, critting on 1s or 10s, which, you know, made me very nervous. But luckily, Senior Massacre, you know, pulled in the goods, got a couple of hits in here, and renders Tariq unconscious. I do have one last order, and that is the irregular order generated by the Chimera, which I was able to spend a command token to convert into a regular order. Note that I've had to spend 1 command token reforming the Link team, another one on this irregular order, another one on the Dactari who failed the first whip check. So I'm left with like 1 chance to revive the Link later on. But, Alpha Seed down, Tariq down, and that is lost a lieutenant. So really feeling good about that. There was the last order I could use to put everybody back into hiding, including the Doctor. So now we go to Hakislam turn 2. Everybody's in lost a lieutenant. So that makes things really easy for me. He does spend some command tokens, getting the Doctor to roll out and revive the Alpha Seed, which he does successfully. Then, in an act of desperation, he's attempting to use his Kalrij, who is not linked because of irregular orders, to go after the Orc Trooper. Who's just tanking up over the back here. Orc Trooper is in the Link team, so this is a very desperate act from the Kalrij, but if he succeeds and kills the Orc Trooper, that's going to bring him right back into the game. So he's attempted to do that. Unfortunately, doesn't quite work. Coleridge is rendered unconscious. He does try to fire the medkit over there, and I believe does revive him. So he's back at the end of the turn, is not actually dead, so hasn't sustained any casualties, but hasn't got any kills either. We can then, I'm going to go through the rest of the game quite quickly, guys, because it turns into a bit of a snowball here. So, A-team, we've got Senior Massacre popping down the smoke grenade on top of the doorway, so everybody can move past. We're gathering up the troops now, forming the plan. The plan's coming together. Hannibal's leading, and we're going to move around the flank here. Nobody's guarding it after we nail the Ghulam sniper with the HMG. That's what's happening this particular order here. So you got Massacre prone behind the car. Orc Trooper pokes around the side, guns down the sniper. We're talking 5 dice 17s, 2 dice 14s. So wrecks him, and then we're just charging down the flank, And this is going to enable us to get to a spot where Senior Massacre can take on the Nafatun. Now, there are some proxies here. This kind of threw me off a little bit. Not really my opponent's fault. I should have just remembered. This is a Nafatun, not a Ghulam, so he's able to flamethrower me in response, which was kind of nasty. And Lila, at some point, comes in zone of control of Laxmi, who is not the link leader, so he has a chance to hack me. So in the process of this, Senior Massacre does destroy the Nafatun, but dies to the flamethrower. Laxmi does take a Red Rum or a Skullbuster or something, and also dies. But we are then able to move the Orc Trooper around here, who's so far into enemy lines, he's able to shoot the Coleridge in the back, because the Coleridge is facing the wrong way. He's also got around the back of the Mukhtar, so they're not going to be able to shoot backwards. We can send Valkyrie around the corner to blast the Ghulam Doctor and the Alpha Seed with the boarding shotgun, or the heavy shotgun indeed. I don't use that gun very often, but she's able to rip into them and destroy them as well, and end up in a situation where she's able to pull back behind cover, and we can set up shop here basically with a 3-person link team. Hannibal at the back, Valkyrie in the middle, and the Orc Trooper there, just able to fire at the Mukhtars as they inevitably plan to leave towards the center of the table to complete the mission. So opponent turn 3, landing with this Drop Trooper here. He's not really able to do anything but move closer towards the HVT. We have the Mukhtars moving out, narrowly avoiding death from the HMG in their own deployment zone. But moving out here, attempting to gun down the Doctor unsuccessfully, because the Doctor managed to pick up a really good roll, which then puts it quite quickly into my final turn. The Crocman reveals, just simply moves into the center of the table. We have the Orc Trooper, Valkyrie, and Hannibal also moving into the correct zones to score the most points. Sniper taking on the Drop Trooper on the side of the table. That's him right up on the side here. So this is my converted sniper, by the way. This is actually a Spec Ops Nomad, which has the helmet variation, and I've just converted a sniper rifle onto him. Also goes after the Mukhtar, but unfortunately can't kill the Mukhtar. And that's game. So, bit of a fun one. I know, just like a learning experience for a newer player. We can see some mistakes there, but like, you can't expect everything to go right when you're learning. In my first few games of infiNity at 300 points, I was making the same mistakes, and he's improving quickly, understanding the game very well, very quickly, and hope to play against his Ramah Task Force again very soon. Had a lot of fun here with the A-team, but in future, if I roll the dice and manage to win the roll for first turn, I'm always going to take first, and if I lose that roll, having deployment is going to hopefully help me defend, and I might need to tweak this list a bit more to give me better chances to defend against potential opponents, especially Ramah, because otherwise I'm just going to get steamrolled. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Hopefully I have some more content for you within the week. See you again soon.